So what's up people, and welcome to the chapters 27 and 28 discussion of Choujin X. So chapters 27 and 28 came out many weeks ago, and as always I will leave a link to these chapters that are currently being shown on the publisher's official website, Manga Plus, for free to the North American audience. So if you're interested, yes, I will go take a look at it right away because they may be pulling it back soon since chapter 29 has actually already come out. I am falling behind on these discussions, I apologize. But because of that, 27 and 28 may get pulled back soon. And so if you're interested, please go take a look at it right away. Now 27 and 28 continues on the somewhat training sort of arc that's going on currently. Now if you recall, Tokio, Azuma, Ellie, Simon, and Momoma were all sent to this island to train by Sandek. And to help them train, Ichiro, Sharapova, and Roja joined the group. And they were given some objectives to go through. Tokio was given the objective to try to transition only part of his body in beast form. Azuma was asked to find out exactly what his power is. Ellie was given the requirement to increase the number of powers she has. And as far as Simon and Momoma, they were asked to just get more powerful with the skills that they already know. And so with that, chapter 27 continues on with this training arc. And we already see that there is some progress going on, not much. And the amount of progress is easily seen when we see Ellie do her new move, which is the loop-de-loop poop smoke power. And what I have to admit is Choujin X is a lot more lighthearted in many ways than Tokyo Ghoul. Yes, there are dark moments, and this is a relatively dark story, but Tokyo Ghoul was extremely dark and there were very few moments of comedy. In the case of Choujin X, there seems to be a little bit of comedy that continues to go on throughout this entire story. And I like that a lot. It may take away from the edginess that you enjoyed in Tokyo Ghoul, but it gives this story a different character. But in any case, yeah. Ellie is not particularly commended for her new move. And in fact, she is immediately scolded by Sharapova. Now, as far as Tokyo is concerned, he is being trained under Roja, the Spike Choujin. And what we find out is, yes, Roja seems to have a little bit of a sadistic side to her. And whenever Tokyo fails, which seems to be quite often, we find some very interesting punishment that is given to Tokyo by Roja. Now, as far as Azuma is concerned, his seems to be the most serious of the three in terms of training. And he does want to find out what his power is. But on top of that, he also is trying to be able to utilize his powers without going completely out of control. And he is being trained under Ichiro. And what's happening is Ichiro's letting Azuma use his powers as much as possible, but whenever it does go out of control, he uses his psychic powers to create an image that is so traumatic, such as him falling from great heights and smashing into the ground, that psychologically he just blacks out and goes back to being his non-Choujin form. And so it's a pretty traumatic training that Azuma is experiencing, but he seems to be gung-ho at it because he really wants to bring his power under control. If you remember, he is the one that really wants to become a hero. And so that motivation really drives him very hard despite the difficulties of the training. And this is one thing that I really do like about this story. Once again, not only is it laid back, but it focuses a lot of its time in the non-battle moments and the non-focus moments to the actual confrontation that is going on between good and evil. In the case of Tokyo Ghoul, if you recall, even during the non-battle moments, there was a lot of discussion that revolved around how they were going to battle or confront the adversaries that they needed to take down. But in the case of Choujin X, it seems to be more about a self-revelation sort of story. These characters really have a tremendous amount of fault, and despite the training, much of it is not about their powers, but about their character development. And so that is one thing I really like about this training arc. A lot of training arcs are all about power and getting more skills, and this one of course revolves around that, but the story focuses actually on the character development that comes out of the training. And so one of the things that we see is eventually Tokio and Asuma get better at their skills. In fact, they get so much better that Ichiro decides that he will just leave and leave the students with Sharapova and Roja. And they have a very nice time in the evening being camped in that beach island. But the one person who doesn't seem to be able to really get in on this entire situation is Simon or Shimon, whichever way you want to say it, the sword Choujin. And we find out about it through his background. He seems to have a kind of a Sasuke-like background, right? So his family were all sword Choujins. And in fact, it's something that is handed down from one generation to another. There seems to be skills that they could actually pass from one generation to the next using tattoos. And because of that, the following generation continues to get stronger than the previous one, and the household that he was in became very, very strong. However, during the war, because they became so strong, they became the target for a tremendous number of adversaries, including a group called the Hero Killers. And during one night, their entire family was decimated by a very, very powerful Choujin. And it's at this point that we do remember that this is a Sui Ishida comic. Although I don't show the image here, and what I am showing is that Simon seems to be the only person who survived that massacre. The image that follows of the actual Choujin that killed all these family members really is signature Sui Ishida. It really brings back the understanding that this is a gentleman who can write really dark comics. And so if you're interested in what little Simon sees during that massacre, then you could go to the comic and take a look at it. But in any case, this leaves Simon with a tremendous sense of hatred, grudge, and a desire for revenge. And so as much as everybody else is having a good time, he just can't get into it because his entire persona, is somewhat Sasuke-like, right? And so he's moping around being very dark, and yet during the training he notices that Tokio is trying very hard to continue to improve upon his skills. And one of the skills that he notices Tokio really focusing on is trying to develop his wings. And as a more experienced Choujin, Simon gives him a little bit of advice. He says that wings are probably the most difficult part that he's going to be able to transition to, because it requires a tremendous number of muscle groups that typically do not exist when you are human. And so trying to go to that particular power first may be a waste of time at worst and difficult at best. And so he suggests that maybe he should transform to other beast forms that may help protect him rather than wings, which can only help him escape. And it is at this time that we again get a character development and a character revelation, in the sense that Tokio tells Shimon the only reason he's focusing so much on the wings is because he remembers that it was his wings that were able to save Asuma when he was drowning after the fight where he became that really powerful Choujin. And so as much as he understands that there are benefits to creating capabilities that could take other people down, he wants to focus on his powers that can save other people. And that really gives a really good understanding of who Tokio is. And despite Simon being like, go ahead, do whatever you want, I think he was a little bit impressed by Tokio, because for some reason he decides to linger on and help Tokio practice his flight. And in fact, he gets better as he goes along, and despite his dark personality, Simon actually gets excited over Tokio getting better at flight. And so this chapter covers a lot of things, including a really good personal moment between Simon and Tokio, in that Simon asks Tokio with regards to his objective. Do you want to become a keeper? Do you want to become an officer of the Yamato Mori? Because it is a difficult position and you have to focus down completely. If you falter even a little bit, you will get killed. And it doesn't really fall into Tokio's easygoing personality. And Tokio acknowledges what Simon says and that he agrees. He doesn't always have a purpose. In fact, he spent all his life without really objective to go on. He understands exactly why Ellie is going through this training, because she does want to defeat the bad guys. Asuma, of course, has the lifelong commitment of wanting to become a hero. But why is Tokio doing this? Tokio himself did not understand until most recently, where he realized that by saving Asuma, he found a purpose. And so he was going to focus his objective in being able to protect Asuma, because Asuma will probably get into danger as he keeps on going on. And at that point, Simon, being concerned, states that as interesting an objective as that is, it really doesn't focus strongly on what Tokio wants. So Simon was wondering whether he should actually focus on something that is more focused towards him and his accomplishments rather than towards Asuma. And it was a very useful conversation, I would think, but again, there is a little bit of comedy in this, and the comedy is very subtle. Tokio, being the kind of brooding sort of person he is, falls back into his darkness again, because he was like, yeah, I finally found a purpose for my life and you just took it away. And so, yeah, Simon becomes a little bit guilty about the advice that he gave. And it kind of creates this awkward situation, but they really don't have time to look into this, because Asuma, who was also training late at night, ran into the first of the 3 evil Choujins that have come to the island. Now, what's interesting is the cover of chapter 27 shows these 3 Choujins, so that we do recognize which ones are the evil ones. And we do know that they are the evil Choujins because the Smoke Choujin is amongst them. And a gentleman named Hume, yeah, he is probably the most evil character that we have encountered so far. But in this case, it is one of the other characters who attacks Asuma, and immediately he goes on the defensive. And we find out just how good a fighter Asuma is, because though he was ambushed, he was able to defend himself, transform into his Choujin form, and decapitate his adversary instantly. But we also find out the power of his adversary. From the initial attack, she seems to have the ability to create multiple appendages, and this reminds me of Nico Robin in One Piece. However, after the decapitation, we realize just how powerful she is, because she has the ability to grow any part of her body, including her head. So even if you decapitate her, she doesn't die because she just grows out another head. And this really gives this Choujin tremendous powers, because you're not exactly sure how you will be able to kill her unless you literally burn her completely. But in this case, Asuma is not a fire Choujin. His weapon that he's been practicing with are knives, and they turn out to be not the best weapons for this particular Choujin. So it'll be interesting to see how this battle turns out. But in the meantime, of course, Tokio and Simon are running towards Asuma. But they get interrupted by Hume, who comes and attacks them. which of course angers Simon, and he demands why they are here at the island, and Hume answers, well, we're here because we need to collect the Beast Choujin. And so Tokio immediately realizes that they're after him. And before he can do anything, however, Hume is so powerful that he moves right next to Tokio and says, and you seem to be emitting some beast energy. And so there's already a peril going on in Asuma and Tokio's position. But there is that third Choujin that we saw on that original cover. He comes out, and yeah, he turns out to be what they call the Ayatollah of rock and rolla, and his Choujin power turns out to be music. And the music is so horrendous, it seems to actually wake the dead. And by doing so, he creates a zombie army that attacks the remaining number of people around, like Ellie and Momoma and such. The battle there seems to be very, very interesting. And Ellie gets seriously upset, not only because they were ambushed, but because this gentleman would actually deface these corpses by bringing them back to life as his tools. And that angered her so much that she went out and directly tried to attack this third Choujin named Hiroto. But because his powers are sound, he could affect the balance of Ellie while she was flying and give her vertigo, which sends her crashing down into the ground. But luckily, she is saved by her mentor, Sharpova. And I still have no idea what Sharpova's power is. They're called Dark, but his power so far really doesn't give any sort of dark theme. But in any case, somehow he's able to come and attack Hiroto, saying not only is he an enemy, but his music sucks. And so with one strike, Sharpova takes down Hiroto, and typically that would be death. But it turns out that Hiroto, because his power is music, has the power called Encore that brings him back to life again. And so he comes back to life and thanks everybody for wanting an encore. At which Sharpova tells him to get lost. And so even within the battles, there seems to be a hint of humor for Choujin X. This is very, very different from Tokyo Ghoul, where the battles were outrageously dark. But in any case, now the battle is on, and the evil Choujins are in full force against the Yamatomori. And so it'll be interesting to find out in chapter 29 what happens, but we are transitioning now from that semi-training arc to a full-out battle arc. And these evil Choujins seem to be seriously powerful. So I'm looking forward to what happens in 29 and 30. And once 30 comes out, I'll bring out another discussion video. But this is the chapters 27 and 28 discussion for Choujin X. If you read it, what you think about it, any comments will be greatly appreciated. Thank you very much for watching this video. And until the next episode, happy manga reading. And as always, Jaya, nice day everyone.